So in class we talked about we kind of touched on what's right and what's wrong. I asked myself about that a lot because it's something that is very prominent in culture today, and it's something it's interesting to learn about what people think is right and what people think is wrong. So I searched around and I found a study called moral relativism, which basically means that moral relativism may be any of several philosophical positions concerned with the differences in moral judgment across different people and cultures. The three philosophical positions are descriptive moral relativism, which holds that only that some people do in fact disagree about what is moral. There's meta-ethical moral relativism, which I find myself to be the closest to. It's that in such disagreements that were aforementioned in descriptive moral relativism, nobody is objectively right or wrong, which is saying that if I think that punching I don't know, punching someone was right and you thought it was wrong because of how we were raised, then neither of us would be right or wrong. We were agreeing with our culture and our upbringing. And then there's normative moral relativism, which holds that because nobody is right or wrong, we ought to tolerate the behavior of others even when we disagree about the morality of it. That one is kind of interesting. I think that it has an interesting meaning to it because it's basically saying that no matter what people do, we can't really, it wouldn't be right of us to disagree with them if what they're doing is based upon their upbringing, their cultural background, their family, all that kind of thing. So, but to go a little deeper in, because meta-ethical is my favorite because I find myself the most drawn to it. So, it's the terms such as good, bad, right, wrong, they don't stand subjected to universal truth. So they're kind of like you can't be right when you're talking about something like religion because there's no way to prove that, but you can't be wrong, and there can't be any, and you can't say that a religion is bad because it's a belief. You can't argue with a belief. Well, you can't argue with it and win the argument. There's an American anthropologist named William Summer. He was an influential advocate of this view for meta-ethical relativism. He had a book called Folkways. He wrote in 1906, and he argued that what people consider right or wrong is entirely shaped by the traditions, customs, and practices of their culture. Moreover, since there is no higher moral standard than the local mores of a culture, no transcultural judgment about the rightness or wrongness of a culture's mores can be justified. That makes sense. You can't argue against what their culture says if that's what they want to believe. Descriptive moral relativism is okay. I found it to be not as interesting, but it was still pretty interesting. But might as well go a little deeper on it. So it's basically saying that different cultures have different moral standards. That's what I've been saying the whole time. So we can relate this back to how the world is today. I'll give you a really controversial example: abortion. There are a lot of religious people, Catholic, Christian, that are pro-life and they're against abortion. But there are also a lot of people who are pro-choice and think abortion, if they need it, then they need it. So if people, you can't be well informed and have a good argument if you say that it's wrong to be pro-choice or it's wrong to be pro-life because it's their cultural choice. It's their choice. So you can't exactly be right about things like that. I'm not talking about um, scientific problem. I'm talking about things. I'm talking about moral standards and how they affect the human race today. It's a very relevant subject to today's world because a lot of, especially with military action that the U.S. takes, a lot of people think that we shouldn't. A lot of people think we should. What is the government going to do? They have to do what they think is morally right. Thank you.